All right, good morning and welcome to the How Can I Support My Child series. If you can see me and you can hear me, let me know that you can. I don't know whether it happens on your end. The network has been pretty shaky in the last few days. Sorry, we had to move the session from 8:30 to 9 o'clock because we didn't have a reliable network. It didn't seem like the network was going to be good. So we decided to just wait a little and then try. If you can see me and you can hear me, please let me know that you can. Welcome to today's series. My name is Maribel Chima, and I am the founder of the Parenting Through Mentorship Academy and PTM Resources, and of course, the proud matron of the Mastermind Circle. This is that show where we come and talk about parenting issues as it concerns parents of young children and preteens. It is the How Can I Support My Child series where we answer questions that parents ask us about their parenting journey. Yesterday we had the show and I had to join that show. I had to start that show while I was outside. And it was a very short show, but we are not repeating yesterday's show. We will just jump in to what we have today, and today we're looking at the question, why is it that my child is not able to stand up for themselves outside the home? Right, my child talks at home, my child is active at home, but when they step out of the house, it becomes a problem. They cannot stand up for themselves. In many cases, they can't even speak. They are always quiet and not contributing or saying anything in class most of the times, with their friends at all the times, in the playground and all of that. We get this kind of questions many times. We get this question a lot because we work with young children and preteens. We work with children from age 5 and 8 months, they're about 6-year-old, 10-year-olds, and up to about 12, 13-year-olds. So we have parents ask these questions because we have children who are like this. Now, dear parents, when you have this situation or when you notice this about your child, the first thing you want to do is not just to, you don't want to get worried first of all. Okay, the first thing you want to do is look for the root cause. What could be the reason why this child is different at home and behaves differently outside the home? You want to look at that because there are a couple of things, or there are a number of things rather, that could be the reason for this pattern, basically. Okay, so you want to trace it. It's always very critical in your parenting that you are looking at the roots, not just the behavior. Behaviors are usually the outcome of something that is underlying. Yes, behaviors are the outcome of a foundational a positive foundation or a negative foundation. So most of the outcomes that we see, most of the behavior that our children manifest, most of the behaviors that we manifest as human beings are usually as a result of where we are coming from. In most cases, how we have been raised. Yes, okay. You've heard me say this before, and I will say it again. The child that you are is the parent of the adult that you will become. So the adult is a child of the child. So, yes, you cannot separate how a child was raised. You cannot separate your upbringing, your childhood from who you become. Children are a children are an extension of who their parents are. Children are the product of how they have been raised. Children are the children of the adults, are the children of the child that you were. All right, so this is what it is. You cannot give what you don't have, you cannot give what you don't know. Okay, if anything is going to change in the child, if anything is going to be different or is going to be reflected differently from who the parents were or who the parents who raised the child are, then it will be that the child or this adult got to a point where they were able to sit down and evaluate weight, they are able to sit down and reflect on how they have been raised, and they can say, okay, this went right and this went wrong and this. And so as a result, I have decided to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And this is what we should all be as human beings. We should all put ourselves in that place where we are constantly learning, unlearning, and relearning. Now, when you put yourself in that space, then you say that you're actually living your full life, living one day at a time, open to learning new things and unlearning the things that you do or the things that you knew that are not serving you anymore, or the things that you knew that are not serving today's situation or your present situation or dynamics. So it's important, it's critical that we are constantly learning. So yes, your your child's behavior, positive or negative, is as a result of a foundation, is as a result of a root. And that is what is important, the root that is causing that behavior that you see. Now, if it's a behavior that is you are worried about, if it's a behavior that is not acceptable, then we're still saying the same thing. You want to trace the root and deal with it from the root and not just the behavior. Because if you deal with the behavior per time, it is still there. The root is still growing, the root is still solid. So it means that you are just going to be doing temporal, right? You're just going to be doing temporal fixing, all right? And you will not exactly eliminate that behavior because the root is somewhere and it will continue to produce fruits, if you understand what I'm saying. So that's why we say a lot of times when you become a parent who goes when you make mistakes, when you do this, we reset the brain. If you are that parent that's always building this, you're always using the rod, you're always, in that space where you punish everything that the child has done wrong, and you are not digging deep to look at where it's coming from. You are just going to be, making a mess of that child, because of that parenting style that you have chosen. Meanwhile, you are not dealing with the real issues. So that's why we say we want to ensure that you are focused on the behavior and not on the human being. Focus on the behavior. When you focus on the behavior, you're able to trace what is wrong. And that way you can separate the human being from the behavior. But most often we do not do that. We do not separate the human being from the behavior. And so we want to inflict pain on the human being. And we think that by inflicting that pain on the human being, the behavior will be corrected. But no, it's a matter of time. Sometimes there's a freeze mode, there's that whole the child freezes, the child a number of things that can happen. The child can either withdraw, right? The child can either withdraw, or the child can actually get to that point where the child shuts you out. Just don't mean that that behavior is not there. The child can withdraw and shut you out of their life. The child can actually retrieve into themselves, and you don't have access. But it doesn't mean that the child has changed that behavior. The child can actually adapt to, doing what it is that you want at the time, because that is what it takes for the child to survive at that time. Now, when you are removed from the dynamics, or the child finds themselves in another situation where you are not there, the child will go back to that behavior because this is what the child knows. All right, so that's why it's important that we are looking at the core. So your child is not talking outside, your child is not interacting with people, your child is different outside than the child is at home. You want to find out what it is. Now, I'm going to be sharing 3 things that are likely to be the cause. This is not absolute, okay? Because our family dynamics are different, our children are different, and it could be, more than, that I can't come here and give you a diagnosis, right? So basically that. So I'm going to share I'm going to share, the possible 3 possible things that could be the reason why your child is that way. Number 1, your child could just simply have a personality that is, that is more introverted, right? Your child could have a personality that is more introverted. So if you done anything about temperament, or anything about temperament, you would have heard about, some people being sanguine, some people being phlegmatic, melancholic, and sanguine, melancholic, phlegmatic, and all of that. Now, these temperaments could actually, affect the way the temperaments actually are responsible for the way that we act, right? So the way you talk, the way you play, the way you eat, is actually driven by your temperament. So now your child could actually be that person with a temperament where they are less likely to be outgoing, they are more likely to be withdrawn to themselves, they do a lot of thinking, they do a lot of assessing, they would assess a situation and all of that before they act. So that could actually affect the fact that the child is like that. So the child is probably one of those that will not express themselves until they are really very comfortable, right, in the space. Your child could be that child that it is only when they're with familiar people that they want to express themselves or they want to say anything. They are the ones that will come into his place and they will have to check everybody, they will have to understand their environment and all of that before they can relax and feel free. So that could be your child now. Now, is this something that we should now embrace and accept and say, oh, that is it, that's how it is? Now, that's where you come in as a parent, okay? I think we'll leave that, we'll come back to that, okay? But that's where you come in as a parent, right? When you are able to know and understand the child, then there's something you can do to help support and guide the child in this area. We'll come back to that, all right? The other thing that could be responsible for this is it could be that your child has low self-esteem, all right, and so the child is unable to stand up for themselves, or the child does not think that they are enough, all right. And the sad thing about this low self-esteem is that it would actually begin from home, okay. So it's usually as a result of the kind of parenting that has happened at home. So we don't know this a lot of times as parents, but our parenting can actually be the reason why our children withdraw, or be the reason why our children are out there expressive, and owning, their voice when they go out. Now, how can this happen? Your child could be that child that is very active and very boisterous, and all of that, the vibrant, child, and you are always stopping the child in their track. You are constantly stopping the child. That's one that will ask 1,000 questions and you're like, keep quiet, you talk too much, you this, you that. So when this is the case with the child that is always shut down, the child that is always told to keep quiet, the child that's always told you talk too much, the child is always getting into trouble for being themselves, the child is always getting into trouble for expressing themselves. Now, when this happens over time, the child would actually withdraw, right? The child can actually withdraw because somewhere when the child goes out, the child is second guessing themselves. Remember, from home, you already told them they talk too much. From home, you already told them they are this, they are that, your own is too much, your gra, you're this, you're that. So when the child goes out, this is how he already perceives himself. So he feels that if he actually opens his mouth, this is how he will be criticized. So your child actually feels overly criticized, and so that can actually affect them when they leave your home, because the degree or the level of self-esteem that your child has is actually gotten from home. Yes, how your child's self-esteem is built from home. It is in the home that your child's self-esteem is built. So if you're not intentional about building your child's self-esteem, you will be the reason why your child feels they are not enough. You will be the reason why your child feels that other people are better than them. It will be the reason why your child feels that he is a burden or she is a burden. You will be the reason why your child feels that they will probably put people off if they open their mouth, because they always, put you off anyway. Okay, number three is the child could be traumatized. All right, so a child who's gone through any form of trauma can actually, be withdrawn like that. All right, so a child has been through, trauma, and trauma can be anything. So, a lot of times when we talk about trauma, when you say trauma, people will be like, why are you using trauma? People just want to think of trauma as something that happens to you when someone outrightly gets out there to be wicked, to be mean, to abuse you. But no, trauma can come from anything. A child who grows up in a home that is not stable can be traumatized. A child who grows up in a home where the parents are always fighting can be will be traumatized, right? A child who grows up in a home where love is not expressed and they didn't watch their father love their mother or their mother do the same can actually be traumatized. That is trauma. A child who grows up in a home where there is no stability is traumatized. A child who grows up in a home where the parents are not present can actually be traumatized. A child who watched other people, yes, you can actually raise a child in a home where you are mean to the house help and mean to the domestic people who work with you, and they watch you do this to these people, and you think it's just about the people. You are actually traumatizing your child. So your child gets traumatized by the way that you treat other people. All right, that can be trauma. A child can be traumatized by the things that you should have done for the child that you didn't do. All right. So I'm not an expert, in emotional intelligence and adverse childhood trauma and all of that. But trauma is deeper. But I've attended a number of courses and I've read a lot around this. And trauma is deeper than just the things that happen to the child. The things, do you know that a child who grows up in a home where there is hardly, enough food, there's hardly a child who grows up in a home where poverty was a thing can be traumatized. That can be traumatizing to the child. A child who grows up being rejected can be traumatized consistently without understanding that rejection. A child who grows up in a home where he's constantly told there is no money, there is no this, there is no that, can actually be traumatized. So, trauma, as I said, okay, a child who grows up in a home where the parents are not expressive towards them, no hugging, no loving, no affection shown, and all of that can be traumatized. And as I said, a child who grows up in a home where the parents are constantly fighting, and all of that, all of these can actually come up as trauma. So trauma is bigger than just, someone sexually abused you, or you were beaten to the point you're beaten to the point that you broke a bone, or all of. Do you know that when we even hit our children and all of that, that can be trauma on its own? All right. So all of these, are trauma, and usually children, even when we yell at our children overly, in a way, when we yell at our children overly, that can actually cause trauma in our children. So for parents who are yelling, for those of us, I mean, a lot of us came from there, right? A lot of us came from that place where we were full-time yellers, right? So when you see some of us working, so hard and trying our best to be as intentional as possible, it's because we know that we have delivered some level of trauma, and basically we are on an unlearning and relearning process. We are on a healing process already, because we don't want these children to carry the small trauma that we already have deposited. We want to help unlearn, we want to help them heal. All right, because as it is said, if you do not work on yourself and you do not peel those traumas, you are just going to end up bleeding on these children. They didn't hurt us, but again, we are passing down this trauma because it is all that we know. It's all that we know. And if we don't present ourselves or bring ourselves to the point where we start on learning and doing better, we are just going to make a mess of them, because we will pass down our trauma to them, and they will live through those trauma. And the worst part, the worst kind of trauma, is when you are traumatized and you do not even know that you are. When you are living out your trauma every day, You're living out your trauma every day and you insist that there's nothing wrong with you. What that does is you will bleed on your children, you will bleed on your spouse, you will bleed on the people around you, and the circle of trauma will continue. Okay, I hope we know that as parents, our number one ministry is raising our children. So it simply means that when we go to God, if you are a religious person, you know that you will stand in front of the master someday and he will say to you, oh, you good servant, you have done the work, right? Or he would ask you questions. Do you know that how we raised our children is going to be one of the questions that God is going to ask us, really? And if all that we're going to do is pass down trauma to these children, then we are going to answer for it. Okay, so it's our responsibilities to actually sit down and reflect and see where it is that we're coming from. Because if we don't heal and we don't identify this trauma, we will pass it down to our children and it will start showing up in their behaviors. For instance, them not being able to stand up for themselves when they are out there, them not being able to use their voice positively, them not being able to control their emotions. Now, this is where it gets also dicey. So, for some of our children, they can't speak up for themselves. They can't say anything. They can't do anything when they're out or worried. Now, for others, they are overly out there fighting and pushing back at every small instance of, someone provoking them even in the slightest way. So for some of our children, it is the other extreme, right? They have been so criticized and they have been so traumatized that they become so what's the word now? They become so um what's the word? They become so, give me the word. No, they become so defensive. That's the word. So they become so defensive, that every small thing, like something really small, something as small as someone stepping on them, or someone, saying something that is really nothing serious, they will take it and they will fight so hard. A lot of times it's still coming from that trauma, when they've been traumatized by parents who are on emotionally intelligent, and they've been yelled at for every tiny little mistake. You break a plate, you get yelled at. You do a little thing, you get criticized for it. You're criticized at every instance. You are hardly praised, right? When you are hardly praised and you are overly criticized, okay, that becomes trauma, and that's all that you know. Okay, and I know I like how the marriage people say it. So many times when we don't heal from those trauma, we even take it and we begin to bond, right? Even with the spouse that we marry, we trauma bond. You just marry people, or you end up with people based on the fact that you can somehow your traumas are similar. So somehow you're able to bond based on all of this. All right, so these are the things that can be the issue. All right, trauma can actually be a big issue why your child is probably not doing this, not being expressive outside, because they are not confident. They're second guessing themselves. They don't think that they are enough. They are constantly being judged. So when you judge a child always and you say horrible things to your child, what happens, as they say, is the child doesn't end up hating you. The child ends up hating themselves. Okay, and of course, when a child is overly criticized, of course, you end up raising a bona fide critic. So they hardly, as they grow older, they hardly see anything good in other people, because they have a yard that they are constantly using to judge everybody. So if as an adult you find yourself always telling everybody else, that they are wrong, and you find it difficult to praise people when they are right, you want to stop and think about it. You probably are coming from that space, and what you are doing is you are passing this down to your children, and what it does, it ends up making people not confident. That's why you will see adults who are outspoken. You see adults who seem to be friendly and they move about, but when you look deep down, their self-esteem is low. They can't on their own own it, right? They can't, because they're constantly second guessing themselves. They're unable to start anything on their own because they're constantly second guessing themselves, and all of that. So these are the issues. And a lot of us are coming from here. A lot of us are coming from here. Some of us have had to work on ourselves, to heal. I told somebody the other day, okay, oh, it's good that you're not, I mean, you turned out well. I didn't, right? I said to someone, I didn't. I came from trauma. I came from all of these. But the good thing is, I've been able to identify these things, and I am working to unlearn and to relearn. All right. Just because I don't want to bleed on my children. Okay. So they also understand that I am a work in progress. And sometimes I will make mistakes. Sometimes I will falter. And usually I will turn back to them and say, you know what? I am a work in progress, and this is wrong. I had no right doing this. I had no right saying this. But hey, it's because I'm a work in progress. So I apologize. So when you do this, your children are able to hold you accountable, because they now know that this is also not right. Okay. And of course, because they understand, all right, they now know this is also not right, and they're able to hold you accountable when they see these things show up. So when you give your children permission to hold you accountable, they become better and you become better. So yes, this could be the reason, and this is one of the biggest reasons why your child will be okay at home and your child is withdrawn outside. That could be one of the biggest reasons. The fact that the child is traumatized, the child is overly criticized, the child is overly, reprimanded at home and all of that. So when they go outside, they don't feel enough. They feel like, okay, I don't ever do enough, I'm not enough, and all of that. And don't forget, I said the first part can be the fact that your child is actually based on their temperament, their personality. So their temperament will ensure, because of their temperament, of course, the children would do things in a certain way. They are quiet, they don't want to speak out, and all of that. Now, I like the way my coach puts it: your temperament is not your destiny. And that's why we are learning as parents. So when you see that this is who your child is, right now, you want to help them to manage these temperaments. So your child is melancholic, is phlegmatic, your child is always critical, of themselves. Your child wants to, make sure everything is perfect. The child doesn't want to relate or interact with people. The child would rather not, give their opinion on anything. Now, this isn't how they are going to navigate the world. This isn't how they are going to be successful. This is not how they are going to break grounds, and all of that. So what do? You come in there and you teach them how to manage this temperament in a way that you could be shy, but being shy does not mean that you cannot use your voice. So yes, you can be that calm person, but when the situation comes, this is how to project your voice. This is how to speak. This is how to do the things that you do. Now, this is very key, that we are able to see and understand who these children are. You know your child, you understand their temperament, you understand their love language, you understand how they learn, you understand their personality. And based on that, you are able to equip them with the skills that they need to manage that temperament without it being a burden in their social, cultural, emotional, and all aspects of their lives. So, yes, as I said before, the temperaments are not our destiny. It is what we are, but we can manage them and be more. All right. I told my children the story. I told my children the story of how when I was in secondary school, the first time I joined the press club. Now at home, I was that. I can say this because this is part. This is me. This is me. I mean, this child we're talking about is actually me. All right. Also, all right. So I grew up very loud at home. Not loud in the sense, yeah, pretty loud, right? I was that child that would actually talk about an adult, and the adults in my house will laugh and close their eyes, like, hey, she's disgracing me, kind of thing. But now, when the adult leaves, they will talk about it and laugh about it, like, ah, kid, this girl, your mouth. You know that thing that we do, that very thing that we do. You know those what's it? They will have, what's that thing that trended one time? They go beat, they go tire. You know that thing that we have children that we allow to just run with their mouth, right? Children that we allow to talk. We no, there's no dark room, there's no the children that we allow to be uncooked. And these days, because it's a is a season of skits and a season of fun and all of that. So everything is vibing, isn't it? Everything is skits. Everything is how do they say it in Nigeria parlance? Everything is cruise, right? So everything is cruise, and so children, just run and talk anyhow, and adults laugh about it rather than guide the children on how to, etiquette, etiquette, social graces, and all of that is left aside because even the average adult doesn't even know how to apply etiquette, social graces, and all of that. So we laugh at those things. So they will laugh. But at home, when I leave my house, come and see me in school, quiet like this, cold water, nothing. You will not hear pim from me. That kind of thing. So I was telling the children how when I got to secondary school, I'd left home and I'd moved to Abuja. Okay, I got to secondary school and I joined the press club, and how I got on the podium to read the news, and my voice was steady, but I was shaking. Like I was shaking. It was embarrassing. It was crazy. I think I was about 13, 12 or 13 at that time. I just couldn't, but hey, I went through it, and then I continued practicing. Now you could look at it and be like, the child is not, she's just she's an introvert. She doesn't like going on stage. She doesn't like doing this, and leave it there. But no, you can also say that this happens to everybody. I mean, even Obama says that. I mean, if you, as far as public speaking and being eloquent and all of that goes, these are people that are right there in front. But even Obama would say everybody gets a little jittery when they are going to give a speech or they're going to stand in front of people. So now, if we're able to look at this and say to the child, it's okay that you are like this, everybody gets a little of that. And then you help the child train. You build the child, you build the child, you build the child. And with practice and over time, the child is still feeling that way. But the child masters how to stand, and do the things that they have to do. So that's where, we come in as parents, understanding our children, getting the resources and the support that we need to support our children to deal with some of these things, whether it's from trauma or it's their temperament or it's coming from the kind of parenting that we have doled out in our homes. All of these are very, very important. So you want to, as I said, go and check what is the core, where is this coming from, and if it is about the child's, whatever it is, the child can be supported. Okay, whatever it is, the child can be supported. All right, you want to even there are a number of things we could do to support the child. Number one, you can actually get the child in that place where the child is associating with people more. Now, okay, sorry, there's something I missed also. Now, if you, and it's still, I didn't really miss it, it still boils down to the kind of parents that you were, all right? Because some of us are so introverted ourselves, or some of us are so, I don't know, afraid, right? We're so fearful as parents that we raise our children in our house, in our compound. So we are raising our children. Our children do not even know the next door neighbors. Our children do not even go out to play with the neighbors. Our children, I mean, some of us, we are so great, we are so perfect as parents that we don't want our children to mingle. We don't want them to mingle with the children of the gate man, right? We don't want them to mingle with the people in the neighborhood. We don't want them to mingle with anybody. And so they are there by themselves. All they do is get into your car, from your car to your friend's house and back. So because the children do not have the opportunity to interact with people they don't know, interact with strangers, go out to the park, you have those social connections. Because this is not fostered. Of course, it becomes, an alien practice for them to meet and mingle with people who are not familiar. And some of us still go about with the don't talk to stranger kind of mantra. And so because of that, these are some of the things that could be the reason behind all of this. All right. So of course. So that's why it's important that you are evaluating your own cultural intelligence. You are evaluating your emotional intelligence, your cultural intelligence, your social intelligence. You are evaluating all of that. Of course, you're also evaluating how you were raised, and the trauma that you probably could have passed down to your child. All of these things come together, and you want to look at all of this holistically so that you can identify which challenge your child has. When we have children coming to the mastermind, a lot of them come in and These are the issues. The parents want them, to interact more and all of that. So what we do is we create the platform where the children can actually interact with themselves. Okay, and this year is going to be one of the core things that we're doing in the mastermind, because we have parents who have reached out directly to say, I would need more help in this area. All right, so what we're doing now, we're going to use a lot of peer mentorship, we're going to use a lot of individual mentorship, direct mentorship, and all of that, because for you to help children, it's not about sitting them down and saying nothing will happen. Just open your mouth, do it, do it. It has to do with a lot of practice, and it has to do with a lot of experience. You have to create experiences that will allow the children practice regularly and consistently until they outgrow it, or until they replace that behavior even without knowing. You will just see one day and you're wondering, oh, what happened? This has changed. All right, I had this. I'm not going to go. If you have been following me, you would know my son's story. Okay, this was also my son's story to an extent. Okay, and we had to do a lot of work. We started doing the work since he was 6, and I tell you, when our son was 13, we were still doing the work. Okay, a lot has changed between 13 and between 12, 13. A lot has changed between in the last 2 years. A huge, as in when I tell you a huge difference has happened in about 2.5 years. All right, just because of the mastermind, and the fact that this became, we took this a notch to the I mean, to a higher level, right, to help him, deal with all of this. All right, so it's something that can be done. It's something that we need to pay attention to as parents. It's something that we can help our children with, but we need the right environment in our home. We need the right support system, and of course, we need the right attitude towards the child. We need to look inward ourselves so that we see if we are the ones that are sabotaging the children. All right, so the mastermind is a peer mentorship and accountability group that we run for young children and preteens, and a new cohort of the mastermind begins in the first week of September. So you may want to, if you have children between 5 years and 8 months and 14, 13 actually, all right, because we graduate the children when they turn 14. So they want to come in when they are 13. So we can work with them for an entire year, all right, when they are 13. We work with them for an entire year. And usually for a 13-year-old, we're a little more intense, especially when they come in at 13, because we know they have just 1 year with us and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But more than anything, we say bring your children to us as early as possible. Bring them when they are 5 years and 8 months, when they are 6 year olds, 8, 9, 10. Bring them at that time so that we can help you or support you. And together we can help them build a solid foundation, help them develop executive functioning skills, help them become self aware, learn how to take initiative, learn how to direct themselves, and do all of these things that will help them become empowered and equipped so that by the time we're graduating them at age 14, we are actually graduating children who are resourceful and productive, children who are empathetic and who understand who they are. That is one of the biggest and the greatest gifts that you can give to your child. Children who understand the place of mentorship, understand the place of coaches, mentorship, and sponsors in their lives. This is very critical. And you want your children to start hearing these things, learning these things, and understanding these things as early as possible. Very, very key. All right. So the information is scrolling on your screen. If you would like to be a part of the mastermind circle, you can reach out to Ross on our phone number 081306 or just use the information on the bar and use that. The mastermind is very affordable. For an entire year, monthly subscription is less than 6,000 naira. So what it means is that you get to pay only about 70,000 naira in an entire year for us to work with your child every day. When I say 365 days, I mean 365 days, showing up for them every single day. That is how serious the matter is. All right. If you have not pre-ordered my book and you have a child 7+, you are wrong. We have two amazing books. All right. Destined for Greatness and Wisdom Stories for Champions. Two amazing books that will help your children begin to see themselves as powerful people, see themselves as people that can do anything that they put their minds to. And of course, we have lots and lots of inspiring stories, icons, and stories that can help them bring this values that we want to pass down to the children in an authentic way. I am the storyteller. I am that advocate for reading, and I want as many children as possible to have this life saving skill. All right. So you want to pre order a copy of each of these books. You can get both of them. It's on pre order right now. So you can get both of them for 6,999 right now instead of for 9,000 naira. You want to save that. And apart from that, you get your child to join our master class, our set for success in school master class for your children. They can join your preteens in the first week of September. We have that master class. All right. We also have two guides for you. One of them, the guide on how to help your child study independently so that they can build the ability and the skill to learn independently. A lot of children do not know how to do this, so that's why they are constantly depending on lesson teachers and everybody else to scaffold them. The scaffold is supposed to be a temporal thing, not a permanent thing. All right, so you want to help your children get to that space. Thank you very much. I think I have stayed for 10 minutes extra, so I gotta run right now. Thank you, Onyinye, for joining me and for dropping your comments. All right, so thank you very much. If you would like to pre-order the book, you also have the information on your screen right now for you to do that. Where is it? Where is it? All right. Right there is the information. You can also screen grab that information about the books, okay, for 6,999, two in one set, and you can pay to PTM Resources and send the proof to 0813062156. We will have it on Amazon in a few days, and you can also order an e-copy, but hey, get a physical book if it's for children. Let them read hard copy books. Thank you very much for joining me today. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you at 8:30 p.m. tomorrow. A.m. tomorrow. Sorry, we had to move it to 9 today because we had network issues. Thank you very much, and bye. Bye.